Hello friends! Today we're going to be talking about the infamous e-collar. The e-collar. There used to be a lot of controversy surrounding this collar. Not so much today. Long time ago when I first started, it was more hush-hush with this collar. But now it seems to be growing in popularity. People are a little bit more open-minded towards the collar. And to me, it's just another tool that we use, just like a carpenter would have several different hammers, or a surgeon would have several different scalpels. We've got different collars that we can use for different occasions or different types of dogs. So today we're going to talk about the e-collar, how to use it, and the pros and cons of the e-collar itself. Now, the e-collar, as compared to traditional training collars where we would use manual corrections, with this one it's just the strike of a button that delivers a correction to the dog. Pretty simple to use, very effective. It stays consistent regardless as to the levels that we have it at, so it never fluctuates, where sometimes with our manual collars you'll find that sometimes we're on with our corrections, sometimes we're not. And we all know in dog training it comes down to consistency. We have to be consistent with our rewards and the way in which we correct our dog, and that's one of the beauties of using the e-collar. It always stays consistent. Now, with that said, we're not going to get into the different brands of e-collars. We're just going to talk about the e-collar in general. So with the e-collar, you have, what I'm holding here is the transmitter. The transmitter, the job of this is to send a signal to what we call here the receiver. Now, the receiver is worn around the dog's neck, and the ideal positioning is to have this big box here, the receiver box, with the two probes. So you see here we have two probes, have to make contact with the dog's neck. This is where again the charge comes from, the signal. So when we place it on the dog's neck, the ideal location is right here, up underneath the neck and somewhat off to the side a little bit. And it's vital that these two probes make contact with the skin. If not, then you're going to be wondering, why is my e-collar not working? You know, I put it on and I set it at the right level and there's no reaction from the dog. 9 times out of 10, we didn't fit it properly. Now, when you're fitting it properly, ideally you want it snug, fairly snug. Snug enough that you can only get 2 fingers in between the collar itself and the dog's neck. If not, like I said, you're going to be wondering why it's not working. Because remember, these probes have to make contact. Now, they have a variety of different probe sizes. So you can have the short ones, or if you have a long-coated dog, you can go with the longer probes. So this way you know you're making contact. Because remember, with each dog, the fur varies. Some dogs, they have a very smooth coat, so you can get away with the shorter ones. With the really thick or long-coated dogs, you can use these, but you might find it's not as effective. And that's where the longer probes are beneficial. Now, we also have, going back to our transmitter, various buttons on the transmitter. So with this one, we have a pager mode, which is right there in the middle. And if I was to hit that, what would happen is it would send either a vibration signal to the dog, or depending on the setting, it would be a tone, like a beep. And those would be used as a warning to the dog prior to receiving an actual electrical stimulation. Now, I look at it this way. By warning could be the sound, the beep, or it could be the vibration, or just simply my command itself. So if I told the dog down at a distance and the dog didn't down, now I'd repeat down and then hit the stim. Okay, getting back to the transmitter, there are several different buttons on the transmitter. We have, like in the middle here, we've got this big old button, and that is the pager mode. So with the pager mode, I can send a signal, it's usually a vibration, to the dog. And it's kind of like warning the dog ahead of time that, hey, maybe you're going too far, you gotta stay close. Or some collars or transmitters, they have more in the wave tone. So it sends out a beep. So when the dog goes too far, it'll beep ahead of time. Or you can just use your voice. So I can say flex, and that reminds them, you're going too far, hang back. Now, if the dog was to ignore any one of those signals, Then we can actually go to the side here where we have another 2 buttons, and one button represents, let's say, a momentary stimulation, so the dog feels this in the way of an electrical charge, or you may have continuous, where if I hold the button long enough, it'll just keep doing this until I get the behavior I want. I take my finger off and everything stops. So this one would be momentary. I hit it, the dog receives 1 shock. I hold this one, the dog receives several until I get the behavior, and then I take it away. That's a classic example of negative reinforcement training, where if you're trying to teach a behavior, we would keep the pressure on the dog, the negative reinforcement, until the dog gives us the preferred behavior, at which time now we remove the negative and that becomes a positive. So it's very simple to use, the e-collar. It's not as complicated as you think. People think it's really extravagant, it's really complicated. It's not. Think of it this way. It's no different than your manual corrections. Command, correction, praise. That's the equation that we use when we're training dogs. It's the same thing. The only difference is everything comes from the strike of a button, as opposed to you manually having to go in and correct the dog. With that said, it keeps it impersonal. So the beauty of the e-collar now is the dog is not seeing this from you. So you'll find there's less in the way of stress. So for dogs that may be a little bit more on the shy side, there's less in the way of avoidance behavior. Or you may have a dog that's a very strong civil dog. If, let's say, you give that, some of those guys come right back at the handler. So the beauty of the e-collar, you take all that out of the equation. So really and truly now, it reduces stress and creates more harmony between the handler and dog. So it's not as bad as you think. Yes, we talk about electrical charges, stimulation, and we think, oh no, we don't want to do that to our dog. But really and truly, it comes back to handling. If you use it with discretion, it's one of the most effective, efficient ways of training your dog, especially for off-leash now. So when you want to give your dog more in the way of freedom, so you're the type that likes to go on long hikes, those long trails with your dog, now you can give your dog more freedom because you got this big old invisible leash on the dog. That's the beauty of the e-collar. You've got control whether it be 6 feet away or 60 feet away. This is an invisible leash for you. Also, timing wise, you can't beat this. The moment you hit it, boom, the dog receives it immediately. Whereas I find with some handlers, they're a little bit delayed with the delivery of their corrections. So they correct late. And what happens is when you correct late, you can create confusion because you might correct at the wrong time when something else has been given by the dog. So the dog doesn't really know exactly what it is you want, and that once again creates stress for the dog. So timing wise, you can't beat the e-collar. It's right on point every time. Now the negative to the e-collar is it can also create what we call superstitious behavior. So now let's say I give a correction when the dog runs towards this chair. And I didn't, let's say, pre-warn the dog. I gave the correction before giving the command. The dog, especially if it's brand new to the whole e-collar process, the dog may pair the correction with whatever's next to it. So in this instance, it could be the chair. So before you know it, the dog stays away from the table because of the chairs. And when you want to hang out, on your patio like mine here and have the dog lying beside you, now all of a sudden he's staying over there by the gate. He doesn't want to come in. And that's because I used it incorrectly. That's called superstitious behavior. So we've got to be really careful when we're using this collar. Remember, the formula is command, correction, praise in that order. So this way, there's no misunderstanding by the dog. He knows exactly why he's being corrected. And when we're now introducing the e-collar to the dog, we usually do it online. So when I say online, meaning using a long leash of maybe 15 feet. So this way now, let's say I'm doing the recall with the dog, a random recall, where we allow the dog to travel about, sniff, get distracted, and then we call him. So we say to him, Flex, come. He doesn't come right away. We repeat the command as usual, Flex, come. But instead of picking up the long line like we do traditionally and giving a little pop and then reeling him in, we would now proceed to use the stim. Boom, so we hit our button on the e-collar. At that time, the dog receives the shock, and now we reel him into us. We bring him in, good boy, sit, and then lots of praise. You still praise the dog, you're not punishing him. You're correcting him for disobedience. And the beauty of it, it doesn't take long at all, maybe 2 or 3 times maximum, and then he starts to put it together. So before you know it, come, and he's flying back immediately. So everything must be done on the leash or the long line first before proceeding to off leash and using this collar. So this way now, it also helps prevent any superstitious behavior. So if he's next to a tree or a rock or whatever, he learns it's not the rock or the tree that did it. It really and truly came from the handler. And again, in a way that doesn't create too much conflict between you and the dog. That's the beauty of the e-collar. And there are many different types out there, but at the end of the day, they all work off of the same premise. And remember, it's like automatic correction versus manual. And for those that own a very large dog, the e-collar is great, because if you're a small person and you own a very large dog and you find that those manual corrections, he just laughs at you, he blows it off, well, this is your saving grace right here. And it's great for aggression. Now, when working with aggressive dogs, I tend to, if possible, I'll start first with obedience and giving the dog a clear understanding of what this thing represents before we get into setting him up with, aggressive situations and then having to blast him at a higher level. If we can get him used to wearing this and getting him to understand what this means via the obedience, then there's less chance of us having to really use those high settings now at those times where he tends to become a little bit more aggressive. Now, there are some situations where we might bypass the obedience and go directly to the use of the heavier stim at that moment. So each case varies, it depends on the dog. Because remember, with training, the program should fit the dog, not the dog fit the program. But that's how we simply use our e-collar. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bring out Flex and we're gonna put it on Flex. We're not gonna use it on him, but just to show you where it should sit on the neck and how snug it should be when you have it on the dog. Give me a moment, let me go grab it. In position, Flex, heel. Sit, good boy. So we're gonna do it just like this. So you can put it on first and then spin it and adjust it accordingly. So I'm gonna just do that. So we're like right there. Now I'm gonna check for the snugness. So I wanna be able to get 2 fingers just like that. See it there? I don't know if you can see right there. My 2 fingers are there. Now I check for the hole placement. So it's roughly here. And you can also do this too. You can mark the hole with, let's say, some white ink. So this way you know for your dog exactly where it should sit every time. So that's a little snug, so I'm gonna just go back a hole. So maybe right about there. There we go. Then I'm gonna take the rest of it, put it through the D-ring and the loop, and I can still just barely turn it. So there we go. So as you see there, we have it right underneath the dog's neck, but off to the side. That's exactly where you want your collar. And again, 2 fingers inside the collar, just like that. That's perfect placement, right, buddy? But we're not going to shock you today. Maybe later. Let me pull this off this guy. Perfect. Lie down. Good boy. Good job. All right, so there you have it. A quick tutorial on the e-collar. So remember, and they usually come in a nice fancy case just like this. You've got your transmitter. You've got your receiver. This one, and it also comes with a lanyard, so you can keep it around your neck. I find that's very useful, so your hands are free. Because remember too, when you start to introduce it, you're going to be working on a leash or a 15-foot line, so it just makes it easier in the way of handling everything. And then you have your receiver, which goes on the dog. It also has a charger, so you want to make sure that your e-collar is charged every night, so you're prepared. A good trainer is always prepared. I've seen many people that come to class and the collar's not charged. Come on, guys, you know what you got to do. And the beauty of it, once again, if you like to go on hikes, trails, or if you're a competitor, they're great for refining exercises. So just to get a little bit faster finish from the dog, or even recall, we would use it for refining. I myself personally, I don't use the e-collar when I'm working my sport dogs. I do use it for excessive barking in the kennel. So for whatever reason, if a dog starts to act up, we throw the collar on and it allows us to train the behavior. I like it with the remote as opposed to an anti-bark collar because I can control everything. So there you have it. I hope you guys enjoyed the video today. I hope it was really informative. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and please hit that notification button at the bottom of your screen so you're going to be alerted when we have new and upcoming videos. With that said, take care, guys.